Declaring America is back, US President Donald Trump delivers the first major speech of his second term to Congress and to the nation. Tuesday night, he hailed the actions he's taken since returning to office, slapping tariffs on China, Canada and Mexico, massive cuts in federal staffing programs, and shaking up US foreign relations. He then promised that he's just getting started. Vice President J.D. Vance visited the US-Mexico border on Wednesday, praising the accomplishments of the Trump administration's sweeping crackdown on illegal immigration. The White House has sent thousands of troops to the border, shut down legal pathways to asylum, and is carrying out mass deportations. For more now on President Trump's new immigration policies, I'm joined by immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Kate, thanks so much for joining us. Now, inside the administration, reports state that there's growing frustration about the pace of arrests and deportations, even as Trump mobilizes the full weight of the federal government behind this mission of his. Where do border crossings stand now compared to a year ago?
Border crossings are down, and they really started to decline toward the end of last year, down in January, down in February. And of course, some of that is from the actions taken by the Trump administration. But a lot of this was pre-existing work done by the Biden administration and by the country of Mexico. But of course, deportations overall are down when we're not apprehending and sending people back along the border. And deportations in the interior take a lot more time with due process because people who are in this country have a right to go before a judge and to defend themselves. So overall, the numbers of deportations under the Trump administration are going to be way lower than they were under the Biden administration.
What about sanctuary cities? Are they still standing in the way of this crackdown? And is there any room for compromise between Republican lawmakers and mostly big city leaders?
Well, sanctuary cities aren't really defined, but generally what it indicates is that the city law enforcement doesn't want to enforce immigration rules. And the reasons that they put forth for that is that they want to have a good relationship with their community. It's better for public safety if immigrants feel safe in an area. So certain cities will say, we're not going to just turn over someone to immigration because they happen to be an immigrant. So really, ICE needs to do its own work, and they need to apprehend immigrants in a certain area because they have someone on a list. I don't know what the outcome of this will be and whether the cities will capitulate. It's really jurisdiction specific. I live in Austin in the state of Texas, and probably the Texas legislature is going to enforce every jurisdiction to cooperate with ICE. But we'll see if some of these sanctuary or protective cities hold their ground and, keep not cooperating as much with ICE in those jurisdictions.
We know that a lot of the US economy is powered by illegal immigrants, particularly in things like farm work and household care. What can you tell us in terms of how those jobs are impacting the US economy and how in the future America's economy will suffer from these mass deportations?
This is a big concern, and it's not just in, the low-skilled labor, agricultural sector. Of course, we need immigrant labor in this country in, construction and in areas like that, but also in mid-level engineering, innovation, tech. We have an aging baby boomer population that's exiting the workforce that will need care for themselves. And the more we lose immigrant labor, the more our economy will suffer. Of course, that has already begun. We're seeing it now. And if this crackdown continues, we're all going to really feel it. From an economic perspective, even those of us who aren't motivated maybe from the humanitarian angle of it.
As an immigration attorney, can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere this is creating for those immigrants, illegal or not, in the US? How are they, responding to this crackdown, and what are some of the coping mechanisms?
They're terrified. And really it is, as you mentioned, it's people of, all levels of immigration. So U.S. citizens are worried about birthright citizenship going away or their naturalization being revoked, or green card holders are now worried about travel and their ability to get back in the country. People with work permits, people who are going through the process, and undocumented people are all really scared about what this means. And in, places like Texas, where the sensitive location memo has been revoked, and we've seen ICE activities in schools and hospitals and domestic violence shelters, people are afraid of sending their kids to school or seeking the medical care that they need. And it's not, people who are have a criminal history are not the ones who are being picked up. From my anecdotal experience, I have had clients who have had no interaction with law enforcement, and they are tearing apart families and picking people up. And so the terror is real, and I think we all are going to start to feel the impact if we haven't already.
And on the other side of the spectrum, we have this proposed gold card opportunity for those with a spare $5 million to get a leg into the US. How would this opportunity change the current system, and how's it being received?
I think it's going to be problematic. First of all, it would require an act of Congress. The proposal is that this would replace the EB-5 investor visa, which does infuse some capital into commercial real estate development and economically depressed areas. And there are only a few thousand of these visas given out every year. It's not a huge number of people. Trump has claimed that over 1 million people would go after this gold card visa at a $5 million investment that isn't even recouped. It's really unlikely, based on historical data, that we would have anywhere near that many applicants. And of course, that this would have to go through Congress, and we would have to have a law. So ultimately, I doubt we're going to see the gold card actually happen. And if it does, that it would even have all of that much of an impact.
And just finally, what do you think bipartisan immigration policy could look like moving forward? And even if, is that doable, in this current political climate?
I mean, I don't have a lot of hope that we're going to see bipartisan movement. I mean, perhaps, maybe if the economy really struggles and the Republicans come around, that perhaps we need to keep the undocumented population here in this country within the workforce, and there could be something that looks like maybe people could register and pay a fine to get legal status. Of course, there have been no indications of openness to this on the conservative side, but that's something that it could look like if we wanted to actually have an outcome that benefited everyone.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to leave it there. Really appreciate your time. Immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch.
Thank you.